Hi, I'm Ken Crawford, president of the Alaska Conference, and I want to show you around my Alaska. I love it here.
This is not the end of the world, but it's pretty close. I love Alaska. It's the greatest adventure you could ever imagine. If you want to find out more, go to our website, alaskaconference.org, and you'll find all kinds of information and stories on what Alaska is like.
There's a constant collision between civilization and nature because we live next to each other. There's a feeling of remoteness, not isolation, but remoteness. There is a vastness in the wilderness in Alaska. The mountains are more majestic. Nature is undisputed master. There's something about this country that sets off in me a craving for heaven. The living conditions are a challenge, I can tell you. But the needs in Alaska far outweigh the challenges of living here.
This is one big place. Unbelievable. Alaska is the largest state. I can't believe the vastness of this part of our country. 230 Arctic villages, and only 10 of them have been entered by the Seventh-day Adventist Church. You know, the work isn't going to be finished anywhere until it's finished everywhere, and that includes these Arctic villages. There is absolutely no presence of our Adventist Church. Something has to be done. We need a plan. These are great people. These people have lived here for centuries.
Because these villages are so remote, they're very closed societies, and it's very difficult to enter those villages unless we have some way to reach into the village itself.
I've never heard of the Seventh-day Adventist Church because the village where I was born and raised, we don't have a Seventh-day Adventist Church.
Without anybody here, nothing happens.
We've got about 3,800 members in all of Alaska, about 2,000 active members in the whole state. And most of those members are concentrated in the area where we've got half of our population. Over 50% of our population are in the Anchorage area, the Anchorage Bowl area. And so the rest of it is very vast, very remote, and those are the areas that are very difficult to reach.
There are so many people in the outreaches of the villages that don't even know the gospel yet and need to be reached. We have a big, big, big challenge, and because of the hugeness of the state.
There's no way that the small nucleus of people can do this task, so we really need some outside help.
Are you missionary minded? Do you have an adventuresome spirit? We'd love to have you come to Alaska and be a missionary and work with the folks here. We have 230 native villages that are unentered. We need you to come and help us.
After 9/11, when my family and I realized that Jesus was coming soon, we wanted to be involved in mission. Through a chain of circumstances that we saw that God was leading, we were led to begin mission work in Selawik, Alaska, a small village above the Arctic Circle. During that time we were there, we learned about the need for radio, and we felt impressed that God was calling us to use radio as a way of reaching out to people all across Alaska. There's so many villages, we thought, well, how can we do this? How can we reach out to the large number of people scattered all over Alaska? And so radio on a small scale, individual small low power FM transmitters, is our key. Now, when I first began this project, we got a little low power transmitter. First we had them outside of a box, and then we decided to put them inside a kit. This is using an ammo can, ammo kit, ammo box, and we power it with this little touchscreen computer here. The computer itself is actually quite small, you can see right there. And then transmitter is right here in the second layer, and then underneath that we have power supplies, and that all feeds to 3 connections on the outside here. we have Ethernet, the antenna going out, and the power coming in. This should make it possible for someone to walk into a village with one of these cans, plug in the power cord, set up an antenna, and plug in the Ethernet and have a functioning low-power FM radio station. Now, there are complications setting up the antenna. We've had challenges with internet not being reliable in villages, and so I'm working on improvements to the software that make it possible for this station to run when it's off the internet, and then whenever the internet is available, it will try to download additional material to update itself and give it more content. But when it is off the internet, it can continue to repeat older programs.
I want to share with you a fascinating book. Several years ago, we put together a history of Alaska, starting in 1896 from the very first pioneer that came here. This book goes through step by step all of the different areas of Alaska.
I started reading this Alaska Mission History by Nadine Toller Hansen. And one of the Gleaner articles from 1954 is called The Angels Sang. I was inspired by this. 13 years ago, it says, this is 1954, so this is 13 years before that, Paul Ballot, an Eskimo, and his young son were hunting caribou far from any village. When night came, they took care of the dogs and made themselves comfortable under a piece of canvas. During the night, the wind whipped around their little camp. Early in the morning before daybreak, Paul Ballot heard the most beautiful singing above the howl of the wind. At first he could not catch the words, for they were in English, but as the singers came closer, they sang in Eskimo. The singing thrilled him and made him afraid, for he had never heard anything like it. He is sure the angels sang to him, and he says they were so close, he heard their wings brushing softly together over his head. Do you wonder what they sang? He sang the song to us. He will never forget that song. Roughly translated, this is what the angels sang to him. When your life here is ended, when you have died, angels shall put their wings over you. They shall blow their trumpets over you, and you will sing with them then. Someday great light will come to your village. It will be like a pole standing on the highest ground and shining in all directions. Angels shall put their wings on the pole and cause all people to hear. Then one voice sang a very sad stanza. At the end, people will be cast into a terrible deep hole to die. The religious leaders who have been teaching false doctrine will be in that hole. The saints will stay far away from that hole. They will be happy. As soon as the angel voices had gone, Paul built a fire and wrote the words of the song he had heard. This experience made a deep impression on him, but he did not understand what it meant. 6 years passed before he read his first Seventh-day Adventist literature. He suffered much persecution when he began to keep the Sabbath, but the Lord was with him through it all. And then it has a note. Paul was baptized the summer of 1955, and he and his wife are sharing the third angel's message in the far north village of Selawik. And when I read this, I thought about the part that says, it will be like a pole, the great light will be like a pole standing on the highest ground and shining in all directions. Angels shall put their wings on the pole and cause all people to hear. And I thought to myself, we have a pole standing on the highest ground in Selawik, on the top of the hill there where the church is. And that's our radio station. I never even met Paul Ballot myself, but his prophecy is being fulfilled in this day, in this time. It's just amazing that I chose to use Three Angels Broadcasting Network. I actually started with Life Talk Radio, trying to get that working, and had some technical issues. And I probably could have used that as well if I'd kept pursuing that, but Three Angels Broadcasting Network is what I chose to use. I feel like this is God telling us, reaffirming what we're doing, and saying, don't give up through the challenges. God is with us. It's His work, and He's going to share this message all across the last frontier. If you'd like to sponsor a radio station like this, go to the alaskaconference.org website where you can learn more about this. It only costs less than $500 to put one of these systems together, and maybe another $500 to fly out into a village and set it up. and we need to make contacts with people. We're hoping that the Discover Bible School that is going on will help us do that, and that we will have people in many villages across Alaska where they don't have a pastor, they don't have a church, but they are interested in having a radio station in their home.
Perhaps you could fundraise, bake sales, whatever, and raise that $1,000 and help us put a radio station in the village. Perhaps you'd like to help us blanket that village with literature. Whatever way that you want to help, we would be very thankful.
We need assistance and help from our fellow believers in North America.